Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for choosing to participate in this session. I'm really excited to share more about our research partnership maturity model that we've developed at FasterCures back in 2021. As was mentioned, this is going to be an interactive activity, so get ready to roll up your sleeves in a little bit, but I'll get us going here. So I guess before I dive in, so the research partnership maturity model is a tool that we use to help organizations that are, patient organizations that are engaged in research, think about how they can grow as research partners and advance their research missions. And we'll be going through the activity today to kind of have you all think about that yourselves if you are a patient group, or go through it if you're not, and just think about some of the capacity and capabilities that patient organizations themselves are growing. This is going to be interactive, so I guess some table setting in terms of how I want folks to show up today. So as we are getting into the interactive portions, just please refrain from checking emails, be fully engaged and present in the discussion. We recognize that not everyone here is coming in with the same level of experience, so all perspectives, viewpoints are welcome and should be respected. We have table hosts here that have volunteered to help facilitate the conversation. So table hosts, please raise your hand. All right, we have some spread out. If we have multiple table hosts at a table, maybe go to a table that doesn't have one. And we also have some materials that are all the tables that will be used today. So we'll be going through what some of those are in a little bit. So this is our agenda. So I'll start with talking a little bit about what the research partnership maturity model is, and then we'll have about half the time to do the interactive activity, and we'll close out with documenting some actions that you might want to take after you've completed the activity. And then I'll close out with just sharing some resources that we have at FasterCures to help support patient organizations in their journeys to advance research. So those of you not familiar with FasterCures, we are part of the Milken Institute. Milken Institute is a nonprofit, nonpartisan think tank. And FasterCures itself puts the patient needs above all else, where we're trying to build a biomedical research and development ecosystem that's effective, efficient, and driven by a clear vision, where patients are at the center of that ecosystem. We're trying to overcome unnecessary barriers and trying to get life-saving and life-enhancing treatments to patients as rapidly and safely as possible. We've had a long history of supporting patient organizations through actually 19 years now of running the TRAIN network, which is the Research Acceleration and Innovation Network, where we currently have 160 patient foundations that are engaged in advancing research. And as part of TRAIN, we try to help those groups think about more strategic and entrepreneurial ways to advance research and deploy their funding. We do a lot of different activities as part of TRAIN, which includes workshops, webinars, and provide resources to help grow their capacity, provide numerous opportunities for them to network and connect with other leaders in the space, and provide thought leadership to help provide the patient organization and patient perspective to important biomedical research and innovation conversations that help inform policy and programs and initiatives at the federal and other levels. So yeah, now I'll talk a little bit about our maturity model and what we have going on here and what it's all about. So over our many years of working with patient groups, we heard from a lot of them that they wanted to better understand how they could grow, what kind of steps made sense for them, and we recognize that a lot of different patient groups were all facing a lot of the same challenges, building similar types of resources. So we wanted a way to characterize what would make a patient organization research ready. And we defined what a research-ready organization as one with expertise, funding strategies, engagement with external constituencies, and patient resources. Are you guys going back and forth between the slides, or I don't know? Okay, yeah. Those four elements would help. Those four elements would be I guess, needed or provide distinctive value to them as research partners to help accelerate their research mission. Because we heard from the patient organizations that they wanted a model and a framework by which to grow, we started to think about what a maturity model might look like to help inform kind of the progression and journey of patient groups advancing in their maturity. So thus, we put together a maturity model, which is basically a framework that characterizes people, processes, and tools across critical dimensions that are relevant to the particular area, in this case, being a research-ready organization. So I'll talk a little bit about what some of these elements, why we created the model, how we chose to design it, what are some benefits of using it, and what are some assumptions about using it. So the purpose of the model, and you guys should see it on, it's the little house thing on your tables. It's meant to enable patient organizations that support research to understand their assets and capabilities of research partners and to chart a path forward for growth. It presents a menu of options rather than a single recipe for success, and it's built upon an organization's context, priorities, and capacity. That's the general purpose. We chose a blueprint as kind of the concept by which to display the model. And it's shown as a house with 3 different floors, each representing increasing capabilities, with the first floor kind of more of the nascent and foundational capabilities and more advanced ones on the higher floors. Across 4 domains, expertise, patients, money, and relationships. We chose a blueprint because we recognize that not all patient organizations may need the same type of house, and their blueprints may be different in order to achieve their research missions. But it shows, so thus, as we're going through this activity, your neighbor's blueprint or house might not look the same as yours, but that's completely fine because you guys are doing different, have different research goals and objectives. It's also, we chose a blueprint because we recognize that organizations are continually growing or continually under construction or doing renovations, so growing their capacity rather than a kind of a stagnant or finite, in the same place all the time. So what are the benefits of using it? It's a useful strategic planning tool. We've actually kind of done a longer version of what we're doing today in a couple of different workshops over the years at FasterCures with the members of our train community. And they found that it's useful to help inform their strategic planning efforts. They filled it out, brought it back to their board meetings, and talked about where they want to grow as organizations. So it's useful to kind of think about where you want to go next as a patient group. It can help attract funding and different partners. So it can help demonstrate where you've achieved capacity, as well as demonstrate where you'd like to grow some capacity in some of those conversations that you might be having with funders or other stakeholders that are supporting your organizations. It's one of the key components is patients. So it helps make sure that you're thinking about and integrating patients into your research activities and making sure that you're addressing their needs and incorporating their experiences into your research efforts. And then finally, it can be used as an educational tool to help inform not only your internal staff about some of the functions that your patient organization does, but also your external collaborators to talk about some of the things that you may do. So there's a few assumptions that we have. First, patient organizations may not always have a research mission. But this model focuses mainly on the elements that we thought were critical for research and may not address some of those other critical elements that you need for advocacy or education. It's informed by real-world experiences. So we've developed this with input from patient organization leaders and other experts in the space based on their progression and how they've kind of evolved over the years as patient groups. And within the model itself, we put examples of different capabilities that might be housed under each of the different domains. It's meant to be illustrative, so it's not comprehensive. There's not going to be all the different elements that might be related to the 4 domain areas. It just provides several examples that might be appropriate for the category. And then it exists in the broader context. So for patient organizations that are serving a patient community where there's multiple patient groups, your house may exist in a community of other houses. And each house may be different, but they may be complementary in nature. So just kind of take that context in mind that, it could exist in the broader community of other houses. So what's in the model itself? So, and I'll talk a little bit about what's included in the different areas that are encompassed there. And I'll just kind of make a couple other disclaimers here. As we go through this, and as we're going through the activities later, you may notice that you might be advanced in one area, but not as advanced in others, but that's completely fine. Or you may have even some capacity at, like, say, the second floor, but maybe nothing on the first floor. That's fine too. It's not really meant to be unidirectional. And organizations can grow in different directions along the model. So I think that's what I'll kind of cover there. But so as we were developing this model and as we were talking to patient groups, there were a lot of issues that seemed to fall outside of specifically the research area, but were foundational to have in place before research could even begin. So we kind of put these 3 areas at the bottom that kind of encompassed a lot of those issues that were kind of foundational to patient organizations getting started. So first, the organizational strategy area has folks think about, what areas is their patient organization going to serve? Are they going to be advocacy-based, education-based, or have a research mission? Do they have an understanding of the landscape that's out there and what the needs are within the space? Have they started to, what kind of assets can they bring to table from their patient organization? And where will they deploy those assets to meet the unmet needs? The next area is readiness. So have they established a basic 501c3 entity? Do they have a board in place? Do they have capabilities to deploy funding and communicate? And have they started to form some of those relationships with researchers, patients, and other key stakeholders? And then finally, we have inclusion. So another area that we thought was important to include is the organization being inclusive of all the different patients that could be served by their research efforts, and making those relationships and building trust in communities to bring everyone into their research efforts. So go into each of the 4 domain areas. Within each of the domains, we've kind of subdivided them to have 3 different dimensions. So within the expertise domain, this focuses on a few different areas. First, the people dimension kind of thinks about the different expertise that you're bringing into your organization, or whether you're kind of having just volunteers, or are you growing to actually have full-time staff with different types of expertise, such as business expertise or research knowledge. So that's the people area. For governance and policies, that area kind of covers things like your boards. Have you established a scientific advisory board? And what types of expertise are you bringing into those advisory committees? And then finally, the scientific strategy we put in the expertise area to think about understanding unmet needs in the community and building out a research roadmap that you can use to power forward your research missions. The next area we have is patients. So within this bucket, we talk about things like what types of information are you gathering from patients? Do you understand their burden of disease? How many patients are impacted? And what are their preferences with respect to the outcome measures that you might be pursuing, or the types of treatments that are being developed? The next area is participation in research. So kind of at the lower levels, you may just be engaging patients in clinical trials, but over time, you might get patients more involved with helping to design those trials, bringing in other folks from their networks into those, and even having patients engage with other stakeholders to help inform their own activities, like with regulators or industry, to help guide and more holistically provide their input into those processes. And then the third dimension in this area is the data. So a lot of patient groups might start off with just a contact registry, but over time they might build out that registry to collect more comprehensive data, maybe do some natural history studies, and be able to share that data with others to help inform researchers in the space. The next domain area that we thought was important was money, and it's definitely a topic that comes up a lot. And this domain talks about where you're bringing in your money. So how are you choosing to bring in money? What types of strategies are you using? Are you doing grassroots fundraising? Are you getting grants? Are you thinking about more strategic ways, such as impact investing, venture philanthropy, to get a return on your investing? So that's kind of some of the different options there within the sources. What are your funding strategies? So what types of mechanisms are you using? What type of mechanisms are you using to deploy your resources? So are you doing grants? Are you using a combination of strategies to fund research initiatives? And what type of research are you funding, either at the basic scientific discovery level, translational level, or even funding clinical research? And then finally, the mechanisms category talks about the different agreements that you might have in place, the different approaches different partnerships that you might have with academia, academic researchers, industry, and others to help fund your research, and what types of what your level of involvement is with that research. Are you kind of hands off, or you have a more hands-on approach, working closely with the grantees and other recipients of your funding to help guide their efforts? And then finally, the fourth domain is relationships. So what types of audiences are you engaging for your research partnerships? Are you working with academic researchers? Are you working with industry? Or are you having some more interactions maybe with regulators, payers, value assessors? That's a lot of different stakeholders you could be engaging with for your research activities. And what types of collaborative efforts are you having? And what's your role with those efforts? Are you bringing patients and researchers together? Do you have collaborative research networks with other researchers and patient foundations within your space? And what's your role within those collaborations? Are you taking an active leading role? And then finally, the last bucket, methods terms, talks about some different agreement structures that you might have in place. Data sharing agreements, intellectual property, and conflict of interest types of agreements are encompassed within that area. So I just want to end with this quote in terms of talking about the model, by this quote by Francis of Assisi. But he kind of encompassed something that I thought was relevant to the kind of growth journey, whether it be within patient groups or otherwise. And start by doing what's necessary. So a lot of groups just kind of start first doing what they absolutely need to do, and then maybe they think about, well, it'd be nice to do this next, what's possible, and then suddenly, before you know it, you're doing the impossible. Maybe doing things that you didn't think were possible when you first started. You're suddenly being able to accomplish those. And I know that a lot of different patient groups in this space have been in this for a long time, and probably when they started, they're like, wow, I don't think I'd ever be able to do that when they looked at other groups, but suddenly they are. So I hope that a lot of you today that are here get to that point of doing the impossible for your patient groups. With that, we're going to get into the interactive portion now. So I know I see some tables that have only a couple. I might ask if you only have maybe 2 or 3 folks, maybe just combine those tables to get around 5-ish, 4 or 5 at least at a table. And for those of you, apologies, those of you maybe listening online, we do have some virtual instructions for you too. But for those of you in the room, we're going to take some time now to use the materials. So first, the first step, we have 2 steps here. If you are in the room, kind of each make sure that you have a maturity model and look at the models and use the highlighters there to highlight where you've already established capacity at your organization. After you complete that step, we have some dots on the table. Place those on areas you'd like to grow your capacity, or think about maybe I'd like to grow this. Or in some cases, you may have already established some capacity. You can highlight areas that you want to strengthen or build out more. So it doesn't have to be areas that you didn't highlight. It can be areas you've already highlighted. So we'll take about 10, 15 minutes to do that, and then we'll have some discussion at tables to have folks share. If you are listening virtually, you can download this placemat by using the URL on the screen and use Adobe to do the highlighting and use some circles to circle where you're going to go. I'll let you guys go, and when we're getting to the end, I'll give you like a 5-minute warning, and yeah, go to it. Hello, hi. Well, I'm sure you guys could probably keep going all day. And I know this is a short conversation, but I hope that these conversations will continue after the discussion today. I want to close out with just a couple of things before we end today. We have an action plan at your tables as well. And this is kind of an opportunity to use some of the conversations that you had and some of the thinking that you've, maybe assembled to think about where you might want to go next based on some of your dots. So we've used this resource in our workshops, and, we filled out the entire action plan. But for the purpose of kind of today's activity, you might want to focus on the middle column. So actions you can take maybe after you get back based on some of your ideas that you've had today, or maybe some areas that you'd like to grow in. So probably take a couple minutes or so just to kind of complete that. If you are listening virtually, you can also download this resource or just list out some actions that you'd like to take based on kind of your different frameworks. But I'll give you another couple minutes, and then I'll close it out with just some resources that we have. So you guys can mute me again. So actually, I'm just going to close out because we are a little behind schedule. And I just want to make sure that I mentioned some resources. So I'll go through this really quick, but we do have a lot of different resources that can help you all as you think about some of these areas within your model. So we have a range of different programs that we have at FasterCures that help support patient organizations from emerging to advanced. First, we have some leadership development and mentoring programs, and I know a number of you in this room have participated in some of these programs or are currently participating. First, we have a partnership with the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative to help support their Rare as One grantees through mentorship, with pairing them with mentors from our train community. Oop, my phone's going off here. Sorry about that. We also have a leadership development and mentoring program for newer patient organization executives or CEOs to pair them with experienced leaders in our network as well, called Leaders Link. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that is. For Train, that helps support organizations that have established some initial capacity to advance their research missions. And then we also have our nonprofit advisory group, Changemakers, that helps provide thought leadership to inform programs, policies that impact biomedical research. So if you're not part of Train, it's free to join, it's free to apply. We have 160 patient groups that participate, ranging from all types of diseases. There's a lot of different benefits to participate in Train. You'll get exclusive access to workshops and webinars. So things like similar to what we've done today, as well as other Milken Institute events. There are opportunities to network with your peers and connect with other leaders in the space from across industry and other stakeholders in the biomedical research ecosystem. You'll join a network of patient groups that have established a research capacity and be recognized on our website. and have opportunities to provide your unique perspective to discussions that impact biomedical research, as well as provide opportunities to mentor the next generation of patient foundation leaders through our mentorship programs. We have our application here. I also have a sign-up sheet at that table if you'd like to jot down your name or take one of my cards. I can give you more information about Train or any of our other capacity building programs. We also have a toolkit that complements the research partnership maturity model on our website. It has the resources we've used today, as well as a companion guide that provides additional context and information about the model, as well as editable versions of the model if you want to adapt it for your own particular organization's use, and blank versions as well. We also have toolkits on our website that are available to anyone for free. You can just go on the website, they're there on a range of different topics that help advance your research partnerships. I just want to highlight LeadersLink. We're in our third cohort now. We started back in 2020, but it's an 18-month program that supports executive leaders that are somewhat newer to their role leading their organizations. We try to target folks that are generally there for 3 or less years, but as part of that program, we pair them with experienced mentors from our network. And over the course of the program, they complete capstone projects to help build their organizational capacity and their leadership expertise. That program is also free. Our next cohort opens up in January 2026. I went 10 years back in time. Yeah, it's a great program. If you're new as leading an organization now, you can consider applying next time. Or if someone starts at your organization in the next couple years, encourage them to apply and spread the word. If you're part of Train or the WIR's One Mentorship Program, we have a few events coming up. Our Future of Health Summit, which is held in Washington, D.C. It's our largest biomedical research and innovation conference that we do at Milken Institute. It will have a range of different topics from patient engagement, diversity, equity, inclusion, and other relevant biomedical topics. It's a great opportunity to network with other patient groups and other leading experts in the space. We also have communities of practice that we've adapted based on the 4 domain areas of the research partnership maturity model. They meet every 3 months. I know that there are some members of those community practice in the room today, but they're a really great opportunity to have conversations like the ones we've been having today with other leaders in the space to share where you're facing challenges and share some promising practices of where you made progress in some of these areas. We also have a webinar coming up on repurposing. The date hasn't been announced yet, but if you are part of Train, you'll receive an invite. But if you're not part of Train, we post all of those webinars to our website, so you'll be able to view it after the fact. That's all I have. Again, if you're interested, come up to me, give me your card, sign up there if you want to get involved with any of these programs. But thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed today's activity. I hope you found it useful. And I'll be here for the rest of the conference. So thank you.